Hello and welcome to another episode of The Living Philosophy. Today I want to talk about our robotic future, and I've been thinking recently, as you've seen in the other episode where I talk about the trend of industrialization on a worldwide scale, I'm thinking about this idea of us building robots and what that means and how we will be outsourcing the labour from, rather than the cheap labour that humans don't have to do, we'll be outsourcing it to robots. And there's advantages and disadvantages to that. In the other video, I covered how that might mean that industrialization stops globalizing. So instead of seeing Africa becoming an industrialized continent on the same scale as the East or the West now, we might just stop where we are, and the countries now that we have are building the robots, and that would be the end of industrializing new countries. So that is one potential trend that could play out, but I'm just thinking about what does it mean for robots to become part of our civilization? Because ever since civilization has kind of begun on a major level, so once we moved from kind of small tribes to dynasties, and from there, from chieftains over a number of villages or towns, once they moved to the level of states, once they reached a certain critical mass where they had thousands and thousands of people and labour became specialised. So you had some people working the land to grow crops, and you had a lot of people who weren't. So you had people moving into non-agricultural fields, non-food related fields, so not hunting, not gathering, and not working on agriculture. And so that opens up a new thing in human history, where now you've got people who are doing random little jobs, and you can have scribes, and you can have the nobility who no longer have to do that, and you can have professional armies. And that was such a major step. But at that point as well, you see wars of conquest with gathering of slaves, because now labour has become specialised enough that you can get a slave to do one particular job that you don't want to do. That's just kind of like essentially donkey work, that you're like, okay, this we've conquered their people, and now we've captured a lot of slaves. This could just be 2 villages over from you. And now these people are set to work the fields, these people are set to plough, or these people are set to do whatever menial tasks there are that you don't want to do. And what that allowed was for the majority of civilization to move to a higher level, because it was like that base shack, or that muladara, the basic needs of feeding yourself and clothing and shelter were kind of covered by slave labour. And now you could move to, people were focused on higher and higher things that were more and more conscious and less to do with menial, repetitive work of the body. And that really got amplified after the Industrial Revolution, where we saw that again, you had the working classes, the poorer classes having to do the mining, having to do the building, having to do still doing the agriculture, and getting paid absolutely nothing for it, essentially. And then over time, that civilization developed, and those initial jobs of industrialization in Europe and the West got outsourced to the East, got outsourced to sweatshops or to factories in China or in the Philippines or India, or just all over the East. These kind of things started to creep in there. And they went through the phase that we went through in Europe a couple of 100 years ago, or at least, you could say Britain. Ireland didn't really have that much of an industrialization, maybe in Dublin, but certainly the other major European powers went through this phase of industrialization. But now what's happened in Europe is that we've moved to a sort of a higher level. So even the next level of tasks have been taken away from us, and now we're left to focus on so we've got more like tertiary industries or manufacturing, but on a very high level, like biotechnology and stuff like that is a big thing in Ireland. So we're seeing the refinement of that moving to a higher level, and now China's working on that. So we still need to outsource, and we see China growing middle class, and maybe they're going to start outsourcing their work to Africa. And if Africa got to a point, then they'd have to outsource their work to maybe South America, if South America still isn't fully industrialized. And so you get this passing of the buck. What would happen at that point? Where would it go once all the world is industrialized? And that's, I guess, where the robot revolution would be essential, because now all of humanity will be living at the next level. The robots are doing the job that slaves have had to do since the beginning of human civilization on a major level. Like slavery and that extreme class difference between the rich and the poor, that's been so built into human civilization since the beginning. Since we got really big, since we started to become states. And so robots could, in a sense, be the end of that, as long as they're not conscious. And if they become conscious, then it's just repeated the cycle, and it's just a new sort of speciesism where, robots are, just maltreated in the same way that slaves were. So it's an interesting thought that robots could essentially look after that base so that all of humanity can move to the next level. And next level of complexity, next level of, moving from blue then into orange, and orange onwards, upwards. So it's just interesting to see how robots could take over that base, and it would be the first time in however many thousands of years since that's been allowed to happen. So interesting thought on the role of robots in industrialization and in that spiral dynamics thing of rising up the levels of civilization. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please subscribe if you haven't already. I'd love to hear from you down in the comments if you have any thoughts or insights. And I shall see you next time. Thank you for watching.